Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of March 3rd, 2026 to order. If you'll join me in standing, the mayor will lead us in a prayer and the pledge.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for the wonderful city that we live in. Thank you for the staff that keeps it running, progressing. We ask that you watch over everyone tonight, watch over the council to make sound and help them assist them in making sound and right decisions. We ask that you watch over our first responders who protect us on a daily basis and cover your hands over their actions. We are coming into one of our biggest seasons in the next couple weeks, and we ask that everything runs smoothly and everybody is taken care of. We ask that all we do in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop. Carlisle.
Here.
Avery.
Here.
Kolchak. Here. Stewart.
Here. All right, if anyone in the audience has something they'd like to speak about that is not an item on the agenda, if you could fill out one of these forms up here and please give it to Clerk Haley. We'll get to public comment later in the evening. Mayor's report.
Not a whole lot tonight, just to let everybody know that we're in the election season right now. It's early voting is open. You can go over to the county center and vote, and March 10th is election day. So if you live in the city of Sebring, you can vote in this election. If you don't live in the city of Sebring, you can't vote in this election. So, but best of luck to everybody up here. Like I mentioned earlier, that the races coming into town in 2 weeks, we'll have a transporter parade that'll kick off the week. So it's going to be a big deal again, like it is every year. So hopefully y'all enjoy it. It's kind of compounded this year. I shouldn't say compounded, but even bigger this year, thanks to Kadzals and Don Davies for putting on a St. Patty's Day party on the same night. So it should be a much bigger event this year, and it'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully see you all there. But that's really all I have right now. So.
Okay, thank you. Council members' reports and concerns. Mr. Carlisle.
I just agree with the mayor. Everybody needs to get out and vote. Let's break a record this year because people don't vote in city elections. They just don't get out. So get out and vote and pick the people that you feel like needs to be up here. I can tell you 3, but I'll keep that to myself.
Let's go, Schatz.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Avery.
Well, I miss Roland not here, but I want to say last week we had a roundtable, so thank you, Carl, for organizing that. So parking is one of the big topics of discussion right now. So a lot of us got together to figure out how many parking lots are available within the city and really close to the circle. So Hannah, our PIO, went through and found, I think, 14 different parking lots that are open to the public, with like 524 spots, and then like 34 ADA spots, and additional 200 on street parking on the circle. So we're working on an active campaign to bring awareness to where are these parking lots, and then where can you go to find parking. So we want to bring this up to all the businesses, and hopefully that's going to alleviate a lot of the stress and frustrations that small businesses are feeling. So thank you, the chief, Hannah, the whole team. It's been a really good week when it comes to parking and bringing that to everybody's attention. Other than that, good to go.
On that note, I think after the consent agenda tonight, at least half of the parking lot located behind the old Wachovia building should be open for the public, at least until construction is done. So that should hopefully get some short-term
Absolutely
as well.
And
Okay.
thank you for doing that.
It's all the mayor. He's the one who gets stuff done. So we're going to move on to item 8, our consent agenda. There's a few things we need to note, some changes on there. On item number B, the announcement of upcoming meetings, our meeting on the 17th, the time has been officially changed to 3:30 instead of 5:30. It's going to be earlier just to accommodate for the FanFest and Transporter Parade. Item number 8F is being pulled until we can get some legal clarification. And then item number 8I has been pulled per the event organizer to come back at a later date. Are there any questions or comments from council on the consent agenda? Okay. Anything from the public on the consent agenda? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda by changing, in the minutes that the meeting will start at 3:30. Pulling, 8F and 8I.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Carlisle.
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Kolbachak.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, we have no old business. We're going to move on to new business, starting with item number 10A. Mr. Swain.
10A is a public hearing in ordinance 1571. That ordinance is entitled, "An Ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, changing the future land use classification for approximately 38 acres located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Sunset Road right-of-way and Scenic Highway, south of Summit Road, north of Sebring Parkway, from county medium density residential to city commercial, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date."
Thank you. This is a public hearing that I need to open.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing. Yes, sir. Take it away.
Okay, good evening, council. Jeff Schmucker with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, filling in for Marissa tonight. But we're going to go through presentation to go over both the future land use amendment. There's also a companion rezoning to this as well, but we're going to couple that together. Do want to recognize the applicant, the Peterson Myers tonight, as well as the engineer of record with JSK Engineering. We're going to give the brief overview on the technical side of things, and then I'd like to turn it over to them to provide you all a little bit more detail on what the project entails. And then from there, we'll entertain questions from the council and anyone from the public. So with that, this is a request. This is on behalf of Gapway Groves property, requesting future land use map amendment and rezoning. The property that you see in the map here, the blue area that represents about 38 acres, that's at the southeast corner of the intersection of Sunset Road and Scenic Highway. This is just to the north of the Sebring Parkway. Next slide. The existing future land use on the property today is a county residential medium, allows up to 8 dwelling units per acre. Next slide. With an existing zoning today of county AU or agricultural, which allows for 1 dwelling unit to 5 acres. Next slide, please. The proposed future land use request is for a commercial land use category. This would support a number of office commercial activities, residential recreation, as well as opportunities for manufacturing, light manufacturing, wholesale warehouse types of uses. The two bottom bullet points here, the non-residential development intensity would allow up to 0.7 impervious surface ratio, meaning that 70% of the site could be developable, with 30% of the site to remain as open space. And then as far as residential development, this category would allow up to 20 dwelling units per acre or up to 40 with the planned unit development. Next slide. All of that said, the proposed zoning on the property is a planned unit development for a business park. So this would be primarily for non-residential use, not for residential at this point. Next slide, please. And when we look at this area from a compatibility standpoint, staff finds that it's generally consistent with the area, with what is happening in the area. What you see to the east of the property on the east, or sorry, to the west side of Scenic Highway, you've currently got agricultural there, agricultural to the west as well as to the east, but with the opportunities for future residential, as some other amendments have recently come through. And then, of course, to the south, you've got the Bernie Little property with the warehouse use there. Staff sees this as a potential transitional type of land use opportunity between the nearby residential, being just to the north of the Sebring Parkway, but also providing, for all intent and purposes, almost like a neighborhood retail or neighborhood business type of area for the amount of potential residential that's coming in this area. When we think about that from an impact standpoint of folks that would maybe be traveling down the parkway out to US 27, this might provide some opportunity for the folks in this area to provide for some of those services. Next slide. Just a couple photos. This first one, this is a view of the property. This is looking north up Scenic Highway into the property. Next slide. And again, another view from Scenic Highway. This is looking south, and what you see there is the warehouse use on the south side. Next slide. Quickly, in terms of impacts, there is capacity for the city to provide water and sewer that is available. Owner developer at time of development would be required to connect. In terms of traffic and transportation, there was a developer's agreement that was executed back in 2023. We'll hear a little bit more about that in a moment. As part of that, and of course as part of any development, there would be additional requirements at time of development to look at what improvements operationally would need to be made to serve any of that future development on the site. But as the review has had or been had at this point, it doesn't indicate that there would be any negative impact on the surrounding roadway network today. Briefly on recreation and open space, as I mentioned before, the developable area would be 70%, remaining 30% of the site for open space. That meets the requirements in terms of the city's recreation and open space concurrency requirements for recreation, public recreation, and open space in the city. So no impacts from that standpoint. Next slide. Staff has also coordinated with emergency services, all located within 5-mile radius of this area, so no negative impacts have been anticipated. Staff has not heard any negative impacts from those folks at this point. In terms of school impacts, because the site will be non-residential, no impacts on Highlands County public school system. And then with this being a former agricultural grove site, there's very little environmental sensitivity on the site today. However, that being said, again, this would be reviewed in more detail at time of development. So there may be additional permits or studies that would be required in coordination with the Water Management District or DEP to pull any permits that may be needed at that time. So that would be looked at in more detail at time of development. But as it stands right now, staff does not see that there's any issues from an environmental standpoint with this property. Next slide, please. So what you see here, this is the master development plan. This is a binding plan that runs with the planned unit development and zoning. Again, we'll get into some more conversation about this. There was a former plan that had come before the city, which had been reviewed, had comments. This is now a updated or revised master development plan that more clearly outlines what the proposal on the property would be, which is essentially on the west side of the site, more retail service uses consistent with this area, a open space or green corridor up through the middle, and then some form of a flex space over to the east side. This has been reviewed, it's been vetted through staff, the city, meets all of the requirements at this point for PUD approval. And as I mentioned, we've got the applicant here tonight, and we can get into some more details of the plan itself at that point. Next slide. Also with a PUD, plan unit development zoning, you have the opportunity to put development conditions on this property. And just to run through these in summary, the conditions that are before you all tonight, number one would essentially be that the development on the site, the uses on the site would be consistent with the uses that are outlined on page 2 of the master development plan. Condition number 2 outlines the development standards. So again, these are the maximum impervious surface area, the floor area ratios, the open space requirements, as well as the setbacks and the height requirements for development when it comes in. A new condition, or in addition to number 2, a new condition that wasn't presented at the previous meetings, more clarity on the FAR, again, floor area ratio, that impervious surface area. The requirement is to have 30% open space on the site. This, as we understand, would allow, as this develops, that if a site comes in and it's only the southeast corner of the site first, that's the first to develop. If it does not meet the full 30%, as long as the site as it develops over time meets the full 30% requirement for the site as a whole, they would be consistent with the PUD approval. Next slide, please. Condition number 3 here essentially is, again, just reiterating the 30% open space requirement, and that it shall include areas for public access illustrated on the master development plan. Number 4, again, this is an updated condition, new condition here. Again, related to open space, identifying on the master development plan that the area, and we can go back to that in a moment, that area up the middle, that green space area would have to be developed, and all that open space in that portion of the property would have to be developed prior to the first certificate of occupancy for the first use on the site to ensure that improvement happens. New condition number 5, which is actually a previous condition. This is just relating to landscape buffers around the periphery of the property, noting that there are potential residential uses that will come in over time surrounding the site. Condition number 6, through the development process, with the new residential that is potentially coming in, being cognizant of that, trying to provide connectivity for those folks, particularly to the west side of Scenic, as that development comes in to provide opportunities for connectivity for pedestrians to either walk, obviously to drive, but to provide that connectivity between the residential communities and this property. And then finally, number 7 is in regards to the developers agreement and the traffic impacts and traffic analysis that'll be required at time of development. And so with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Shelton Rice with Peterson and Myers, and then we'll stand to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Mr. Smucker. For the record, Shelton Rice. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Peterson and Myers, address 225 East Lemon Street, Lakeland, Florida. Today I'm here on behalf of Gapway Groves. This may be a property owner you're familiar with. Zach Strang's in attendance with us today as well. He's our client rep. Additionally, we have Justin Hinton, our engineer of record on this case from JSK Consulting and Engineering Outfit, to answer any questions that specifically you may have related to engineering on this site. With that said, this project's got a lot of history. There's a lot to it. We've been here a lot of times. The first time we talked about this project, at least in front of the city council, was in 2023. We have a developers agreement that goes way back to that time. I'm sorry, I apologize for jumping around. This just generally shows you got a lot of development in the area, right? There's a lot of development. As you look at it from an aerial, you know, there's progress, and that progress and growth is occurring and moving northeast. As you move further away from Lake Sebring, further north from here, you see that growth is expanding that direction. We have Bernie Little to our south. It looks like there's nothing else happening around us, but as was mentioned by Mr. Schmucker, the residential PUD that's on the western side of this site really is everything adjacent to it along Lake Sebring. And so that's planned going through the development process for residential now. And so from a growth standpoint, this seems like an appropriate place for that to expand to next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a little bit about that history. As I mentioned, we had a development agreement back in 2023 that came before this body, concurrent with the annexation of the properties. And as part of that language in the agreement, we specifically included the quotation that says the business park is intended by developer to be developed with commercial uses subject to and through a PUD. And so we didn't know what that would be at the time. We knew all of these properties, the gray, the red, the purple, the blue, were part of what was proposed for annexation. We weren't certain about what everything would be, what exactly would be proposed where, but we're ready to move forward with bringing this in, given changes in the citrus industry, our clients' needs. This kind of prompted us to move forward with this process. The red property is the residential PUD, as I mentioned. So that's 100 plus units, I think closer to 200 units of residential development that's contemplated there, that's been approved by the city council, is going through the engineering process now. The gray area was approved for, I'll call it a medium density residential future land use and zoning, consistent with the development agreement that was contemplated back in 2023. That allows by right up to 5.8 units per acre. So that allows a pretty intensive amount of development. That's starting to get beyond just single family detached when you start getting above 4 or 5 units per acre from a practicality standpoint. So relatively intensive residential to the north. To our south, of course, that's not a part of this project, is the Bernie Little facility that I'm sure you all are aware of. Distribution type use there. And then to our east, there's really nothing. So what that leaves is this purple property kind of stuck between some residential, a lower intensity type use, and then the Bernie Little, a slightly more intensive type use. And so to Mr. Schmucker's comment about this is a transitional type property where we're trying to transition from pretty intensive with Bernie Little, lower intensity with single family residential. So good planning principles is let's put something a little more intermediate intensity in the middle that would fit well both with Bernie Little on one side and the residential on the other. The blue section, just for transparency, because I know this was a hot button item previously when it was talked about. There is nothing pending for the blue south of Sebring Parkway right now. There's no applications pending. That has been annexed in, but there is no future land use and zoning from the city that's been assigned to that property. This is remarkable. We, I think, picked just about the same angle, Mr. Schmucker, for the picture of the site. I actually drove by the site on my way in, and a lot of those groves have been pushed. So this just kind of failing citrus grove that our client's dealing with. You look up, this is Sunset Road, and so that's not really a road, but it's a road that's contemplated in the future. It runs along the northern boundary of this purple site, and the intention here is for this to connect and create a roadway long-term to provide better interconnectivity to some of the residential PUD, and then out to the east further as other properties may develop. Next slide, please. Thank you. So 38 acres. I'll blow through this quickly. Mr. Schmucker did a great job, but city commercial, future land use designation, a PUD, which really has all the nuts and bolts of what we're proposing to do. So I'm going to focus my attention on the PUD request. Next slide, please. So this is what we started with. And the intention, going back to that time, I know this is not a great site plan, doesn't have a lot of detail, but that was on purpose, right? The idea was we don't know what the future will hold. We don't know what the market demands are going to be. We don't know what the desire is going to be in this area long term. We were proposing to do something more commercial, C1 commercial type uses. And at that time we contemplated, do we do C1 zoning? Do we want to do a PUD approval with some of these commercial uses? And ultimately we landed on the PUD because there were some conditions, and we really wanted some detail about Sunset Road and the extension of Sunset Road, and then some additional conditions of approval. And there were some uses in C1 that were intentionally trying to be precluded from this site. So that led us down the PUD path, but without the certainty, we tried to maintain flexibility consistent with your PUD ordinances and what they're intended to do with this site plan. So that's where we were. That went through the Planning and Zoning Board. They recommended unanimous approval, I believe. It was definitely a recommendation of approval for this request with that site plan. We came to the city council, and as you guys may recall, now we're getting a little more recent history, 7-8 months ago. The direction was, we understand what you want to do. We've seen Gapway. They've been good neighbors. They were good developers on the residential project with a number of concessions regarding landscaping and roadways and other issues. We've seen what you've done on some of the other sites. We know you're a good developer, but we need to know a little bit more about what you're proposing. We don't want to give away the farm, so to speak. We want to kind of know what's coming in, or at least have a site plan to understand what's going to go there. So fast forward, it took us quite a bit of time to try to figure that out and know exactly what that is. We've done the best we can to try to maintain a little bit of flexibility while also giving you guys enough certainty to know this is what's going there, and maybe more importantly, what's not going there. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan. This is obviously drastically different from the site plan that we were here with last time. There's a lot of intentionality with it. So I'm going to just walk through a little bit of the idea and the concepts from our standpoint that we looked at. Scenic Highway and the preservation of the views along Scenic Highway was critical. That was something that was important to us. It's important to Gapway. We know it's important to the city. Proposing that this western side with kind of the retail labels, the proposed out parcel labels, that's really kind of the commercial focus of this use, the retail focus, the service focus of the project. We've got it such that we have parallel parking along Scenic, so you don't look at this site and you see a huge sea of parking from the road. It's just a big parking lot with buildings way in the back. We've tried to pull those buildings up closer to the road, create some parallel parking adjacent to Scenic Highway so that you've got a nice landscape buffer, a little bit of parking, and then you see people walking by the shops and enjoying that. On the flip side, no pun intended, on the east side of that, when you get behind the retail buildings, you see we've tried to be very intentional about including open space, creating open space and open pockets, even within the retail section, so that there's places for people to gather, places for people to spend time. recognizing that's an important component of really the new age of commercial development today in these retail shops. It's not just a place to go pick up dry cleaning or go do something like that. It's a place you can go spend some time, get an ice cream, hang out, have your kids play. And so that's kind of the intentionality behind some of the thoughts here. As we move further east, we've got the open space section, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but really now we're talking about separating this retail section from kind of the trade type uses or the little bit maybe more flexible uses we're proposing on the eastern side. The open space is intended to have our stormwater retention, but do it in such a way that it's functional, and so that you get some benches, you get some kind of a park feel there, and you have walkable spaces so that people can, once again, do more than just shop. They can spend a little time on site. Then as you get further east, you'll see the flex space buildings really don't have certainty there as to what that'll be. It's unknown at this time. However, we're trying to keep that as open-ended as we can on that eastern side, recognizing we're away from scenic. We've got open space. We've got retail between us and scenic. We've got separation between those uses on the east and all the way to the west of scenic and the residential projects. And of course, that's closer to Bernie Little, kind of as you look at some of the development, the way that's oriented on the southeastern side. So that's the layout. It's been very intentional about the way it's done. It took a lot of time to get back to you, but we wanted to put a lot of thought and time into it. I think we've gone through 4 or 5 iterations, if not more, of this concept plan just with my client, and then a couple after we talked with city staff and their consultants to try to come up with something that we thought would be productive and something the city could be proud of. Next slide, please. And that's just kind of a zoomed in version of it. I'll mention while we're here, just briefly, the maximum impervious surface ratio of 70%, right? We can't have more impervious than that. We won't likely be anywhere close to that on an overall project scale. When you have this much open space, it would be hard to reach that anyway. The maximum FAR, so the floor area ratio, really deals with intensity of footprints. How big a footprint of buildings can we ultimately have? And that's capped at 0.38. So below the cap that's allowed in the commercial future land use in most commercial districts. Maximum building height is 50 feet, and that was just carried over from the C1 zoning district, kind of back from where we started. We thought that was appropriate. We're not expecting 50-foot tall buildings here, but want to provide flexibility where we can. So this is the second sheet, and this really gets into what uses are allowed where, what can we do, what can't we do. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. I've got a couple zoom ins that I think will show it a little bit better. I think if you click one more time, please. Thank you. So looking at the site, right, we've got the purple pink color on the left. My daughter would be disappointed that I didn't know a better name for that color, but anyway, we've got the color on the left that allows limited commercial retail uses. Mr. Scott, if you don't mind clicking again. Open space in the middle, and then other uses on the east. Table 1 and the uses we identified in Table 1, these are really similar to the uses. There's been a couple of tweaks, but very similar to the uses that was originally presented for what would be allowed on the entire site. What we've done is we've pared those down slightly, and we've really tried to focus on those retail commercial uses on this western site. So you won't see anything more intensive. That's really what we're trying to put as the storefronts, kind of the shops on the west. Open space in the middle, and then other uses that are allowed, non-residential uses allowed in your PUD ordinance. So on that far eastern side, we're just saying other non-residential uses allowed under your PUD regulations, which are detailed out in your code, it is allowed on that eastern section. So that's kind of keeping the flexibility there, but really narrowing down what people are going to see in the focus along Scenic Highway. One more click, please. Thank you. And then Table 2 is also on there, and that just prohibits certain uses. I think the most critical one, frankly, these are a lot of things that we weren't intending to do, but identifying that the retail, and that we have a 55,000 square foot maximum retail square footage for any single tenant. So the concern, some of the concern we heard at prior city council meetings or from the public was, we don't want great big tenants. We don't want a big Lowe's. We don't want a Home Depot. We don't want these things there. That would really cap that. So this 50,000 square foot number, that would really keep out Publix's, Winn-Dixie's, all of those things. This is kind of focusing more on those smaller type uses. So that's how we're getting to those concerns that were originally raised back in those prior public hearings. Next slide, please. So just looking at compatibility for a second, and I know we've touched on it already, but the yellow is the existing PUD that's under going through the design and engineering process now. We have the approved, more intensive residential to the north and Bernie Little to our south. Currently to the east, it appears there's some development. I venture to say residential, maybe one parcel over to the east that's not adjacent to this along Sebring Parkway. But there is more kind of development kind of coming around this. So the thought was, let's create a neighborhood activity center. And that's frankly what I think is the most accurate term for this, where people can go to the store, they could get some milk, they could get some services that they may need. They don't have to go on 27. They don't have to get on a major thoroughfare. They don't have to go as far. And so it keeps some of those trips that would otherwise be traveling farther on the roads closer to their home. They don't have to travel as much. So while these projects generate traffic, right, some of that might be they may save trips elsewhere in the traffic system. Next slide, please. This is Bernie Little to our south, right? So this is what's adjacent to us. It says we're contemplating what uses are appropriate on this site. It's a beautiful building. It's really a nice facility that they have there, but we also don't think low intensity residential or large lot residential immediately adjacent makes the most sense. We think this kind of transition of commercial while also meeting the needs of the neighborhoods would be appropriate. Next slide, please. So just a couple of conditions to note, and I know Mr. Schmucker already went through this, so I won't belabor it, but we've already done a traffic study. The preliminary traffic study was for all of the Gapway projects, all 4 parcels that I initially mentioned from 2023. That traffic study was approved in 2025. So really no impacts, little to no impacts. There's a lot of capacity on the roadways here. It was slightly different uses because we really don't know exactly the uses here, but really didn't indicate there would be any problems. However, when this project comes in, when we go to the next stage, the development stage, there'll have to be additional traffic studies done once we have the definitive, hey, this is the commercial use that's going to be put in there, so they can run the trip analysis and evaluate impacts at that time. I have to provide a pedestrian connection to the extent we can to the PUD to our west. That's under the same ownership as Gapway, right? So we certainly want to make these projects so that they're cohesive and compatible with one another. And then the last condition that I've got there, I think is a very important one that we've added here just in the last couple of days. Really says when it deals with the issue of, well, when does that open space? We love the open space in the middle, but when are you going to build it? When is that going to come in? When can we expect to have that? Or are you just going to build everything on the west and build everything on the east, and then that may never happen? So we basically committed to say we'll deal with that open space, and that open space will be built when we come in for our first certificate of occupancy. So we could get building permits, we could kind of go vertical, but we can't occupy any building until that's completed. And so we thought that was a pretty significant concession given the amount of open space, its overall percentage of the site, and our client's intention, just to show we're going to continue to be good developers, and our client's committed to making sure this is an attractive, good project from day one all the way to the end. Next slide, please. So requested commercial future land use designation, it's consistent with your land development code and your comprehensive plan. It's appropriate, it's compatible with the surrounding areas, as is the PUD request, particularly in light of some of the conditions, some of the limitations we've imposed on the project. We have, as I mentioned before, the Planning and Zoning Board recommendation of approval. This is something you guys have seen before. We believe we've done what was asked of us at the prior city council meeting, so we're here to hopefully see this to fruition and respectfully request a favorable vote. I would ask if there are public comments that maybe we'd be given a minute or two to respond afterward, just so we can answer questions, and we're happy to answer questions from the council whenever you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So because this is a public hearing, we're going to start with public comment. Before we get to public comment, I do want to remind everyone this is coming to us a little bit backwards as what is normal. This is our first reading. After this, next week, it will go to Planning and Zoning for their comments again on this. And then if it gets approved along the way, then it would come back to us in 2 weeks for our final reading. So this is our first bite at the apple. It's going to come go to planning and zoning next week. So now I'd like to invite anyone from the public who has comments, input, or questions. And as a reminder, please state your name for the record when you get up here.
Good evening, Tom Griffin. Need my address?
Nope.
No, okay. Just a quick clarification, because it's going to depend on maybe how I speak tonight. Is this a hearing or a reading?
This is a public hearing.
Okay, because the notification that we got as living in the area said tonight was a reading. And if it's a hearing, we're supposed to have 15 days notice, and today is 13 days. So I need to know which one it is and if there's going to be a vote tonight, depending on that answer. Could anybody answer that for me?
Oh, that's what was advertised. The two public hearings are Tuesday, March 10th and Tuesday, March 17th.
Okay. So this is a reading then.
This is just allowing the public to comment on.
So will there be a vote tonight
Yes.
from the council members?
Well, it doesn't have to be, but yes, I anticipate the council will vote on it.
So you're going to vote on it before it goes to planning and zoning?
Yes.
So why is it even going to
For
go to
first
planning and
reading,
zoning then?
The requirement thing comes in the 15 days, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Swain, for the second and final reading. That's why it's advertised like it is, because it has to be first read, planning and zoning for their notice, and then you do have the 15 days prior to the second and final notice. So this does conform, because even if they vote on it tonight, it's not the final, but,
Right. The ordinance doesn't take effect until it's been approved at two separate meetings.
right.
It has to be approved second.
I understand that, but I was trying to find if there's a vote tonight or not. And if there's a difference between a reading and a hearing as far as voting goes.
Passing it on first reading would allow it to move forward. It would not make anything final as of this evening. It would only become final if and after it was approved on March 17th.
Thank you.
Jeff Carlson for the record. I apologize for only having 6 pages of notes. I've only had about an hour to read through the comp plan, the requested amendment, to the requested motion tonight, and your zoning ordinances. I will not bore you with all the minor language inconsistencies, which are rampant through the 2 documents, but I would read page 2, goal number 1 from your comprehensive plan. To ensure a high-quality living environment through new and redeveloped compatible land uses. And I don't feel like this particular plan fits in that. And one thing for the record to correct is that the first time this piece of property came up before the city and the county was in the early 2000s. I think back then it was my friend Jack Brandon and Norman White were the lawyers that worked with us on my favorite plan, which you will hear about significantly more from me, called the North Sebring Sector Plan. And I think it's really disingenuous of us to use poor planning and poor site zoning to justify future poor planning and poor site spot zoning. The Burning Little Distribution Center should have never been there. It's an industrial use in what was originally put in the plan as R3 as a buffer from light commercial use, which is this development. This development should be on the corner of Scenic Highway and Scenic Highway and the Sebring Parkway. North Sebring Sector Plan was developed prior to Panther Parkway being completed, and at the same time as we were putting together the final touches on the current Fairmont extension of the Sebring Parkway. So it was a very important long-term, long-range planning tool to help us try and determine what should go where and what the compatible uses are. And Mr. Griffin already talked about the inconsistencies, so I guess I'll save that for next Tuesday night. But I hope that as you move forward in looking at especially this north and east of Sebring, that we really need to look long term. I think the traffic, to say that there will be no traffic impacts, you have no opportunity to widen Scenic Highway at Panther Parkway. There are houses right up against the road. One inconsistency that I did want to bring up tonight related to the plan was the ordinance that you're voting on says that Planning and Zoning Board approved this tonight. So that's not accurate. So that needs to change. That it will be heard on that date next Tuesday night. I'm curious in section 2 of the proposed PD development requirements. And by the way, that's one of the inconsistencies. Your zoning code references zoning district PD, not PUD. but PUD is used consistently as a zoning classification, and that does not exist in your current zoning code. Under section 2, it says minimum setbacks, front setback 0, side setback 0. But then in paragraph 4, just below that, it says there's going to be landscape buffers. So I'm not really sure how you get 0 lot line and landscape buffers. That doesn't really make sense to me. There's a lot of others. I guess I'll save them for Tuesday night. But I think this, my opinion, this should have gone planning and zoning first. Then your proposed ordinance would be accurate. And then you do your first reading. And then you do your second reading. But I'll leave that up to you respectfully. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other public comment or questions?
For the most part, my name is Mike Healy. I'm here representing my mother-in-law who lives somewhere close to, adjacent to this property. Pretty much what he just said. One of the first issues that I have is this is going totally out of order. This should be on planning and zoning first. You don't even know if they're going to approve it unless this is all a foregone conclusion. And aside from that, just as previously stated in previous meetings I've been at in regards to this is not the place for commercial. As the last gentleman said, I agree. The commercial aspect, the retail aspect, belongs on the Parkway side of Bernie Little, which, as he said as well, should have never been there. That was a county decision. And at that meeting, that zoning change was made at the county, the statement was made when it was asked about more commercial heading farther north. We're not going to allow that. That was what the county board said. Well, in the meantime, you all have annexed in that property, so that statement is pretty much meaningless, I guess, because y'all are going to do what you want. But this is not the area for the commercial or retail. It belongs down the other end. I appreciate what these gentlemen, these firms have done. It does look far better than what was originally presented as far as the strip mall concept or something like that. I think this is an improvement, but I still think that it's not the place for the commercial development. Thank you.
Any other input or comments from the public?
Tom Griffin, thanks again. Just a couple other things I'd like to add. I mentioned it last time around, but I just kind of want to bring it back up again because I'm kind of a visual guy. And this is a really big deal, what you're being asked to do here. It's a great looking location. It's a great looking plan. But what you're being asked to do is approve a change and allow commercial space development that is larger than anything else in Highlands County. The next closest thing that's not government or medical, Lakeshore Mall, 38 acres, about similar size. Okay, I'll go down a little list here. Sebring Square, Parkway, all the way to Bayview. So that's the whole section, all the way down to Chick-fil-A. 36 acres. Okay, now I pulled this off the property appraisers, so I'm relying on what's on that public website for these numbers. Highlands Regional Medical Center, 11 acres. Winn-Dixie South, 14 acres. Walmart, 23 acres. Home Depot, 15 acres. I can go on. The point I'm making is this is a huge ask for an area that by their own goals is going to be residential. Okay? So you're being asked to almost double the size of any commercial space on a 2-lane road, which now we hear is going to have parallel parking. I don't know how that's going to work. It's just too much. It's too big. It's too important. It doesn't fit the space. I hear that Bernie Little Industrial, and I was against Bernie Little because I thought it was a terrible location for that. I can happily say there's minimal impact on Scenic Road from Bernie Little. So you can't really use that as a justification, as a bumper or a barrier or a segue. because the traffic in and out of Ernie Little is minimal. There's some trucks leaving in the morning, there's some trucks coming at night. Other than that, nobody's going in and out of there. This, on the other hand, 38 acres of retail, up to 50 feet high. Looks like to me some pretty dense goals in the back. It's a big ask, guys. So I would ask that you really consider that. I would ask also, there's no vote tonight because I feel like if you vote, it sways planning and zoning. And I would also ask that the next meeting of the week of the 17th be postponed. There's a couple reasons for that. That meeting is scheduled for 3:30 in the afternoon. That limits when the public can come. It's race week. There's 2 events downtown that night. It's spring break. Okay? So you're going to really limit public involvement of anybody who wants to come to that meeting and speak for or against, either way. And I'm sure these gentlemen wouldn't oppose having all the public have plenty of time to make their feelings known. So I would ask those things tonight from this board. And moving forward, just, this is serious stuff for this area. Thank you.
Any other public comment or input?
Marcus Hazelgrove, Sparkling Drive. Fairly new to the area, but a couple of things. It was a nice presentation. Obviously 50 foot worries me. We talked about, he kind of paused where he got to it. 50 foot will give you an unobstructed view of the lake. We're not allowed to build that high. I live on Lake Sebring, actually next to Tom. So I find that's like a fairly large change that you'd be allowing when current people who already have lived there, some generationally for decades, have never been allowed to increase the size of their footprint. The 0 foot setback, I've honestly never heard of it. Everywhere I've been, you've always had a minimum front setback. So I find that kind of strange. And the impact on the road, obviously the pictures were taken before they cleared the land. So at the moment it's already been assumed that it's cleared, ready for development, which may be a little bit presumptuous. And the traffic and the amount, just the actual impact. I mean, it seems very different to what, when the signs went up last year, we were talking about residential, and this is great. Obviously we'll convert the groves over for more development for homes. But as Tom mentioned, Lakeshore Mall, when you actually put that 38 acre view and you tell people to think of the size of Lakeshore Mall, and that's what you're going to build on the side of currently an unlit road that until the end of last year was covered in groves. I don't mind with houses, but I think you maybe have to look, why is it not further? If you look at the aerial view that they also showed, it looks like in Sebring now we'll be the closest of the new development to commercial. Everywhere else where you showed the pictures of the town, commercial is further away from certainly the lakes or the residential area. So the only thing, finally, Sebring will obviously be working at the racetrack. So I think a lot of people were busy that week, also businesses. There's a lot of people coming to town. It was record numbers for Daytona. They've sold everything out for Sebring. So that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. Did you want a chance to respond to some of those?
If I might, thank you. I'll be brief, and I appreciate a little patience here. For the record, Shelton Rice. Again, I was just talking with my client back there about the citrus, and he said, Shelton, if we could do citrus, we'd be doing citrus. We'd be doing citrus right now, but we can't do citrus. It's not viable. It's not working, and we've been looking at alternative uses, and we've been looking at this one for 3 years. Getting kind of to the timing issue, we've been looking at it for 3 years. We've been around, we've been through the ringer, we've presented projects in front of these folks, in front of the city council many times, on this site a couple of times, before planning and zoning board a couple of times. We still have a planning and zoning hearing on the 10th. We have another hearing on the 17th. We think there's adequate opportunity for additional public comment between now and then. And as always, we're happy to hear if there's constructive feedback or things we can do differently. We're always open to hear what those are and to address them. A couple of kind of things that maybe I didn't say right or didn't really explain exactly what they were very well. When it comes to setbacks and what setbacks are, that's really a lot setback and how far the building has to be away from the property line. When you look at that site, we don't have any buildings close to property lines. That's really dealing more internally with what a lot could be as they plat it and go through that process. we don't see that as being any effect. If the concern is about a building's distance from the exterior property boundary, we're happy to clarify it. And I think frankly, some of those numbers may be directly from the C1 zoning district. We're just trying to use those standards, but include them in to make it look more like a concept plan, more like a site plan at this stage. The max building height, as I mentioned, is from your C1 zoning district. We're just using that because that was kind of our starting point from where we came from. It's not our intention to go 50 feet on anything, but it provides flexibility if there is something that is appropriate there moving forward. As far as the traffic study, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding here. Of course there's going to be traffic. Of course there's going to be trips, right? We're not saying there's not going to be trips. I think what I was trying to communicate is there are things in the traffic world that if you don't have to travel as far from your house to a store, you're not on the road as long. And so overall, it's generally a good planning concept to have commercial or those service type uses in close proximity to your residential. Doesn't necessarily mean next door. I would note, and if we could just briefly go to that one works, the one, but just back if you could. Thank you. So if we look at it, what are we adjacent to? We're talking about compatibility. We're adjacent to our client's own property to the west across Scenic Highway, the residential PUD. They own that. They still own that. The property to the north, they still own. They own that property. The property to their south is Bernie Little. The property to their east is an active citrus orange grove, right? So from a compatibility perspective, from an impact on folks, we don't think that's a negative. We think that's a positive. We think this would be helpful. We think the residents that live in the area would probably use the commercial. We've seen that story unfold in the past. The parallel parking is not intended along Scenic Highway. What I really meant to say was that's internal to the project, so kind of adjacent to those retail buildings to make more of a walkable feel, separate your sidewalks from kind of the travel lanes a little bit so that you feel more secure, more safe on those sidewalk areas. That's internal to the site. That's not adding sidewalks on Scenic, or excuse me, not adding parallel parking along Scenic Highway. Jack Brandon's a partner of mine, so I appreciated the reference to Jack. I wasn't aware of some of the prior things that were mentioned, but I'll look into those. You know, when we look at the site, we look at it in comparison to what's around it. We do think it's appropriate. We don't think this is commercial in the sea of residential. We think this is commercial, a neighborhood activity commercial, a relatively limited commercial on what can go there, surrounded by our client's other properties that he's going to have a residential development adjacent to that he's going to develop and sell to somebody else. He wouldn't do something that negatively affects his other property. So if anybody's affected, it's probably our client as much as anybody else. And certainly he thinks it makes sense from that standpoint and won't harm the other projects. There's examples all over, and I'm happy to provide them of commercial working in conjunction with residential in close proximity. That's mixed use projects. And you hear the term mixed use. That's a common thing that happens everywhere. And one of the big benefits is you can get those services in close proximity to where you live. It's more walkable. It's closer. It's you don't have to be so vehicle oriented to live and to do what you need to do. So I appreciate the comments. We're happy to talk with anybody if they have additional comments for us or feedback. We're happy to answer any questions you may have, but we appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and adjourn the public hearing portion and do council's questions and comments. I'll start. I've got a few comments. So one of the things that has been mentioned a lot, and I've talked with some of you, is you can't undo Bernie Little, right? It exists, and I do agree with the developer's concept that this light commercial is a good transition from a light industrial. If we didn't have light commercial, I find it hard to believe that a developer would put residential housing directly adjacent to Bernie Little. So that would be my concern if we say no to some sort of a light commercial or retail development, that we're dooming this land to just be dead, because I don't see a developer coming in to build housing right next to Bernie Little, or maybe there being an appetite for people to buy housing right next to it. Addressing kind of the mention was the size. This would be the largest development. not quite accurate there. If you go, like, the mall is 67 acres. It's split into 3 parcels. If you click one, it might look like it, but together it's 67 acres. The one with Winn-Dixie and Chick-fil-A is a bunch of little parcels. You add them all up, it's larger than this one. And there's also, I don't know the percentages. You might know this, but the green space in this proposed plan is pretty high, like 50-ish% is my, napkin kind of math on it. So it is less dense than those areas. It's not a sea of parking like some of the commercial developments that we already have existing. It looks pretty great to me, honestly, from that standpoint, and the idea of being able to walk from a neighborhood and have places to be is unlike a lot of the commercial development that I've seen so far. So from a first reading, obviously, we still have planning and zoning to go through this in detail, and we would have a second reading after this. I'm in favor of it as I see it now. I think that the developer has been very diligent in addressing the issues that we had the first time around, and I'm pretty favorable to what is being presented right now. And I think the last thing, there's a question about postponing this. What is the date the new council would be seated? It's the first meeting in April, correct? So if we postpone even a single meeting, it means that we're splitting this and putting it onto a new council when this seated council has heard this development from the start. I really think that's probably a bad idea. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the public to have input on this. Right at tonight's meeting, we have a planning and zoning meeting next week. We have one farther. It is at 3:30, but this is also not the first time. We've had 2 meetings with public input before this, which has led to this moment. So I don't think that there's anyone really being denied the opportunity to comment on this if we made an initial vote tonight, and again, nothing is binding tonight. Still has to go to planning and zoning and then back to us. I think that's all the comments I had at this moment. Anyone else?
And I think, Mr. Carlson, you'll start on planning and zoning this week, so you'll be a part of that discussion. So again, yes, planning and zoning, I sit in on those meetings. They're not really swayed by city council, so they are their own thinking minds, and they have a lot of good people that really dive into this and really love this stuff. So I think planning and zoning will be able to stand on their own merit when they review it on Tuesday. As a young I'm not a young family. I'm looking at young families moving in. I think this is what families are looking for, is how can you get from your home in a walking distance to the coffee shop. I know my younger sister has chosen a spot in St. Pete because the coffee shop was walkable. So, really that's what she was looking for. So I think having this near residential is ideal because we don't have things like this in Sebring except downtown. So I think it is a good option. So again, I'm favorable for what is being proposed because it does provide that buffer. Bernie Little isn't pretty. I think their little section is, but it will at least allow that transition to something more favorable in at least appearance, I hope, with the planning.
I'll go unless Lenore wants to.
Well, I'm listening.
I agree with both of you completely. You brought up a lot of the questions and things I was going to bring up too. I think one of the hardest things is just change. Change is hard, knowing that there was citrus there forever, and now it's not going to be citrus. And it's just, we have to adapt and make the best decisions we can with the best information. I agree that I think that would be dead space if we were just expecting there to be quarter-acre lots and single-family housing. I think there's a huge housing need, and having these units available is just going to increase the supply. I think that's just going to be really beneficial all around. Not everybody wants to have a lot of the landscaping responsibilities too. They just want to have to go have a place to stay, in a place that's walkable and really meetable for a family. I agree with you on P&Z too. I think if there are any concerns that they'll let us know, and I don't think that they're going to be, knowing that Jeff is on P&Z now, I don't think that they're going to be swayed by what we're voting on. And I also agree too that we've been invested in this project for a long time, and I would like to be on council to make these next decisions. I can't thank Gapway enough for listening to the public for years and working with us and hearing the public. So there's opportunities, and I'd be in favor of moving forward. And I agree, it's probably not the best thing, but with not having it to P and Z, but with where we're at too, and with the information that we've had over the years, I think that'd be the best decision.
I think we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. I kind of agree with the public about the next meeting being at 3:30, but we've heard everybody's thoughts. We've been accused of not being business friendly, and I like the concept. I think it, gentleman referred to the mall. The mall is more, it's just a big, there's probably 38 acres worth of parking lot, you know, and this is not going to be that way. There's going to be green area and stuff. And things are changing, you know, and we can't stop it. So I would have to say for it. You know, I know we had a lot of complaints about Bernie Little, but I don't think it's that big a eyesore. I don't think it impacted people like they thought it was going to impact them. And I'm not sure this will either, because it's not going to happen overnight. And the roads will have to be changed eventually. You know, they're going to have to be bigger. So the only thing that I don't like is the 3:30 meeting, but you know, I'm like Harrison, I'd like to be on board because it could be my last meeting, so I'm good with it.
I'm good. I agree with everybody on the council, so I think it's a great project. I think they're scaling it down to where they scale it down, they listen to what the public said early on. It's not as big as a beast as when you first started, or at least looked like it. And then the green concept, I think, is when you get, I mean, just the middle itself is 30%, 33%, then you have the little ponds on the side, so. And I think as far as landscaping, if you all live up to what you say, I think it's a better project than another Bernie Little sitting there, or a mall.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with the comments of the councils.
And to under,
Thank you, Gapway.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's input, you know, and this gentleman and Gatway had definitely worked with us. They've done a great job.
and to clarify one thing, this is a binding site plan. Okay, correct. So it is a binding site plan. So we're not seeing so the public understands this is not a pretty picture that, you know, can be changed once we approve it. This is part of the deal, this site plan. I think if we had designed this ourselves, we couldn't have asked for something that is better to fit within a community like that. And again, I know it is large, but you know, go to any of those other larger commercial places in our city, and there's no green space. There's, you know, the minimum amount of, you know, ditch between 27 and parking as allowable, and that's it. You know, maybe some islands between parking with a tree here or there, but this is actually a beautiful site plan. And conceptually, I'm on board with it.
It's the only thing to add too, and I don't disagree with. I think when we look forward to with new development too, we need to be aware of how they have these buffers too. So as people want to develop too, being very aware of what do we want as a city, and not doing just the one-offs rezoning. So I mean, we're many years into this progress that we're into this project. So moving forward with future development, I think we just need to be going back and using that comp plan.
And I agree. So if Bernie Little did not exist,
Yeah,
I would
completely
say
agree.
this is not an appropriate site. It needs to be closer to, you know, on the parkway, like the future land use map and the North Sector Sebring plan said. But Bernie Little does exist, and I don't foresee. I feel like there needs to be a transitional use between Bernie Little and residential, and I don't think we're going to get a better option than this. That's my thought.
I don't either.
comments from council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance number 1571 on first reading and schedule second and final reading, March the 17th, 2026.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Carla,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Colchester,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, we're gonna move on to item number 10B, companion ordinance. Mr. Swain.
This is ordinance 1572, which is entitled an ordinance of the city of Sebring, Florida, changing the zoning classification for approximately 38 acres located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Sunset Road right-of-way and Scenic Highway, south of Summit Road and north of Sebring Parkway, from county agricultural to city planned unit development, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. All right. You're up.
Again, Jeff Schmucker, Central Florida Regional Planning Council. This would be the rezoning portion of the presentation that we gave. So this would be the transition of the 38 acres from the current county agricultural use to the plan development, and we can correct that for second reading in the short title. But this would be the rezoning portion of the future land use amendment that you all just passed on first reading.
Any questions or comments from the public?
Jeff Carlson for the record. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Swain, did you correct the ordinances prior to their approval? To no longer, they said they were approving them as presented, but they were presented with the incorrect information related to planning and zoning's approval?
Yes, sir, they will be corrected when they come back before council on the 17th.
Okay.
Those changes will be noted.
The second thing is that, as I talk about this ad nauseum, North Sebring Sector Plan, I know you think you've worked on this a long time, but I literally started working on this piece of property 25 years ago. And at that time, the Sebring Parkway was a 25-year-old plan. And we had people lined up in this building fighting us on the Sebring Parkway, saying it's old, it doesn't matter. But what we understood is that the people 25 years prior to us had taken the time to put together a long-range plan and try to stick to that plan and try to look forward to what's going to happen 25 years from now. No different than leases that are 100 years old. You want to try and look forward. I implore you to think of the comprehensive plan not as a burden, but as a tool similar to your budget. It's not something to be changed every time someone wants it changed. It's something for you to look at, respect the work that people did 25, 50 years ago, and what their plans included, and the amount of time and effort that they spent. We literally spent hours with all of the property owners in North Sebring, along 17, Arbuckle Creek, the Crutchfields, Davises, everybody. And so the final question I have is, you keep talking about a buffer because we put Bernie Little there. The east side of this property, in my understanding, is light manufacturing is going to be allowed. That means metal fabrication. So now on the east side of the property that is now bordered by vacant land, you're going to put manufacturing facilities where you could have metal fabrication or auto body shops, or it said, again, I haven't read the whole thing, but it said light manufacturing was allowed. Am I wrong?
I believe a couple of those were excluded from that. Somebody can correct
And
me.
I
Light
think it just
manufacturing?
said- I think that the east side, if I understand it correctly, is permitted uses under the PD section, which does not.
The
actually-
PD, which is not a technical clarification, the zoning ordinance actually says PD, not PUD. It's not short
I
or long.
understand, but that,
Commercial amusements, theaters, the answer are grocery stores, restaurants, sidewalk cafes. This is the east section or the whole section?
that is the, if I understand it, that is the west section.
And again, one thing I asked, these maps are horrible to read in the copy that I got, which is official copy for next week's meeting. I think it's almost illegible to be able to read that stuff. You want to pass that back there?
We have a better copy.
But what I'm thinking about right now is that, okay, Bernie Little was allowed to go there. Obviously, we can't do anything about that as much as all of us, at least I would love to. But you've got to think about what's going to go to the east next time, what's going to go to the north next time. If you don't put the entire package together, then the next council 5-10 years from now is going to be making the exact same decision you're making based on a poor decision tonight or on the 17th at 3:30 when no one can be here. That's it. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Tom Griffin. I'm just going to respond to a few comments. I did add up all those little parcels on that one where Chick-fil-A and everything is, so I think my number's pretty close. So we're talking about a buffer. We're talking about 38 acres. They own all that land. They own 120 or 130 acres on the east side of Scenic. It wouldn't be a bad thing to go back and say, let's spread the commercial out a little bit. So instead of having one giant commercial space, we spread it out a little bit, kind of redesign things and have, 3 10-acre spots instead of one 40-acre spot. I don't think that's an unreasonable way to look at this. And finally, I don't come to a lot of meetings and I know y'all work hard and I appreciate what you do here, but I think it's real selfish to say you want to be in on the vote because you may not be reelected, be at the next meeting. To me, it's not your legacy, it's what's best for the public. And what's best for the public is to be able to come to a meeting and voice opposition or in favor. Not, well, I may not be at the next meeting, so we're going to ram this through so I can have my name on it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I think Mr. Carlisle's comments, Christopher Tuffley, Mr. Carlisle's comments were more as a joke and lighthearted than they were, I want to get this through because I may not be able to do anything with it in the future.
Anyone else? Did you want the opportunity to speak?
Yeah, just briefly for the record, Shelton Rice. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly and the comments from the public. We're welcome to hear feedback and have comments. If folks do submit letters, I'm not sure if there's a process at the city, but they could provide maybe letters or emails or something to the city. They could send them to us if they want to, but a lot of times those are provided to the city or the city clerk, and then we get an opportunity to review them, and of course you guys would as well. So if that would be helpful for folks to make sure they have an opportunity to not only articulate their thoughts, but in as long a format or short a format as they're comfortable, that may be something folks could utilize, and hopefully early enough that we can try to incorporate some constructive things into our project. I think we've shown we're willing to do that. As to the uses, and I'll make sure that's more clear and what we're exactly talking about when we come back. But the planned development or PUD specifically has in the section, and it's referenced on the MDP plan, that the uses are allowed as are permitted for non-residential in the section for planned developments or PUDs. And so that details it out, but I'll make sure we have better, more thorough answers. But it's not our intention to have, auto repair and those things. We have table 2 on there specifically to limit some of those things. And if there are other hot button items or things that we really think shouldn't be allowed that may be allowed in that section, we're certainly open to dealing with those as they come up. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be good developers. And we want to do the right thing. So we appreciate your time and comments. And always we're welcome feedback and input from the public and anybody else. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other public comment? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Some things there. I don't think anyone is wanting to rush this through. So at this point, the way it stands, if we do our second and final reading on the 17th, the public will have had the opportunity to come to a 5:30 p.m. meeting 4 times. before we do that vote. 2 on the last time where it was essentially tabled to make these changes, and 2 before that 3:30 meeting. That's the opposite of rushing something through. And as far as having this voted on before a new council is seated, what I am trying to avoid is having council have to catch up on something that we've spent hours, going through, and they will have to address on their very first meeting with having zero background on it. I think it's prudent to make an informed decision rather than asking a new council, here's your first meeting, figure it out.
Potential new council.
Potential new council, right? The talking about permitted uses, probably part of the concern of that is that the copy that's in the agenda is not very readable. It really isn't. It's not your fault. It's just scanning failures, I guess. I got a more readable copy from Scott earlier today to be able to read those tables. So maybe we could provide that to the public and it would clarify some of these questions. Because the uses are to me, very clear and laid out. Okay. I'm not going to belabor kind of the points we already made. This is a companion piece. Everything I said in the first one still applies in my thoughts. Are there any other comments or thoughts from council?
I agree with you. What I think Harrison and I were saying is we've had years working on this and asking them to change some stuff, and they've graciously done it. It's not a selfish thing. I think we just agree with you. It's throwing it, if there is new people up here, throwing it on them and them having to go back and read everything that we've previously read and know about, seen through, is the reason I would like to be part of that. It's not a selfish thing. It's just we're well versed on it. So I want to clear that. If I don't get the vote on it, I just don't. But there's not a selfish thing about it.
Yeah, just want to echo what you both said. And I think it sounds like Mr. Rice is open to suggestions. So if anybody in the public wants to make it known that they do not want certain aspects of this property getting developed or for a certain use, I think you'd be more than willing to listen to everybody's emails or correspondence and to work through that. Again, you guys have been really amenable and helpful and working with us. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think it's just a good project. And the being on Regional Planning Council and HRTPO with looking at these long-term projects, we're looking at some of these roadways that they're 30 or 40 years out. So Jeff, I agree with you too. If there's a lot of history too that we need to be aware of too as we move forward. So it's 2 years is a long time for us, but in the grand scheme of things too, we gotta look in the future, but also be aware of where we're at right now and practically how do we make the best next step too. Even if that wasn't the original intent, that's not where we're at right now. And I think this is the next best thing with all the green space and that use that's planned, and especially you being the neighbors too. You don't want to hurt yourself in the next phases of development.
Any other comments? If there's no other comments, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion we approve ordinance number 1572 on first reading and schedule second and final reading March the 17th, 2026.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Colchester,
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, there is no business from the audience. We're going to move on to item number 13A, City Administrator's Project Report.
Good evening, Council. Most of the project report hasn't materially changed. I did add some context to the foreclosure on lien process. We have 10 cases that have been working through the system. 5 cases are headed to judicial hearing, 2 cases pending settlement. 1 property is moving toward voluntary compliance as a result of attorney communication. Staff is still working on RFP for Women's Club, but expect that to be published in the very near future.
So, I'm really glad to see that the code enforcement is yielding some positive results. That was the whole point, right? Any questions for Scott? Right, thank you. We'll now move on to item number 13B, petition for voluntary annexation.
So Dick Miller was unable to be here tonight, but Dick Miller owns the Sebring Diner. And associated property has 2 parcels located behind the diner. It's looking to have those 2 parcels annexed into the city. At this point in time, this would be just an approval of concept of an annexation request. We'd have to bring back an ordinance to approve in reference to his annexation request.
Question on that, is he already serviced by our water and sewer? Okay. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item? Okay, any,
I would just like a point of clarification, because I don't know if I exactly heard all the spots. So it says approve annexation request as presented, but this is just to approve it for Attorney Swain to come back with the annexation ordinance. It's not approving the annexation, it's approving for you to draft the annexation ordinance like we normally do in our process.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's a
just wanna
a
make sure it's
conceptual
the
request, I
process.
guess.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, just the way it was worded, just made me a little nervous. Okay.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Not sure exactly how to do it, but I move to approve the annexation request, get the paperwork started.
That works fine.
Okay.
All right.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Carlisle, a second by Mr. Havery. Kathy, can you call the roll, please?
Carlisle.
Yeah.
Avery.
Yes.
Colchester.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes. All right, last but not least, item number 14A. Saley?
One thing first, I just want to reiterate what Mayor Shoup said earlier. This is early voting week. It started on Monday. It goes through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can only early vote at the supervisor of elections office, Karen Healy's office, for this week only. March 10th will be your next opportunity to vote, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can only vote at your precinct. So if you're not going to the supervisor of elections office to vote, because you will not be able to vote at there. If you do not know your precinct, I can answer all election questions except for your voting precinct, which you will need to call the supervisor of elections office to get your voting precinct. Days have changed for the city election, so it may not be at your normal city voting precinct for this election. So if you're just going to a certain place at your city election, Ms. Healy did send out those notices, but so you need to be aware of that because your voting precinct may have changed for this election. So just making everybody aware. And you do have to have your photo ID. So if you walk in to vote and you do not have a photo ID, such as your driver's license or something, whether they know you like they know me and call me Ms. Haley, hello Kathy, I still had to produce a photo ID. So just make sure you come prepared to vote or you will be unfortunately turned away and not be able to vote. Some people don't know that and it's a thing. So anyway, now, council needs to approve the paying of the bills, please.
So moved.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Well, I wanted to say that because some people don't do that and they walk in thinking they can vote because they know everybody and they can't vote or they go to the wrong precinct and
Thank
then
you for saying it.
people don't know. So I want everybody to be able to vote, please. So, Carlisle,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Colchester.